Nithyanandam, welcome back. We'll be continuing on this very important report published by the United Nations, where United Nations has accepted the forced disappearances of the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism and the AIT community. We were going through the report which was published by the United Nations. As you can see projected on the screen, this is the United Nations website where on 5th September they have published the Community on Enforced Disappearances has published Kailasa's report on their website. We can see the report Kailash Union being published by the United Nations on this topic, where they have accepted and published Kailasa Union's report on enforced disappearances of the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism. We were going through the report, now continuing further. Over the years, several false, fabricated accusations were made against the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, Bhagwan Sri Nithyananda Paramashivam, and the community. These were, over the years, proven false. In some cases, the court also termed the litigations targeting the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism as abuse of process of court done with malified intention. These court verdicts that were in favor of the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism and AIT community did not remedy the damage and prevent further persecution. The deep state continued their attacks. As we were going through this report, we were highlighting how in April 2010, the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism was illegally arrested. The police issued a work order for building a special interrogation room with CCTV camera, harsh lighting, and other arrangements for torture. The CCTV cameras captured the police brutality. The police selectively leaked some of the clips without audio to the television channels as part of the disinformation campaign. The channels aired these and even published them on their websites. Now, what the Hindu media terrorist and Hindu media mafia did was they took CCTV footage from the prison CCTV cameras, which did not have audio, and they published it on their news channels and on their websites, giving a false narrative by their voiceover as if it is the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism making those statements. These video clips did not have audio to begin with. Despite this, the news channels, they made their own audio with the anchor, with the news anchor, giving their own statements and attributing these statements to as if were being said by the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism. This they did openly, publicly in 2010. And these videos are still uploaded on their websites. The citations have been provided, like you can see the 25th citation, Times of India, indiatimes.com/video. Swami Nithyananda's interrogation on tape, video show. This link still has this video where the CCTV camera footage has been stolen, so-called stolen, from the police prison, which has been specially designed based on a police order to make a room for interrogation with harsh lighting and other arrangements for torture. In such a specialized room made by the state police department, the CCTV footage of one of the most safest place there should be in a country from the police, it is claimed that the footage was stolen and given to media, and the media has this footage on their website till date, and it is 2022, 12 years, and still the media, without any fear of law, without any concern for human rights, without any accountability whatsoever, still has this footage on their website where they have taken the footage, CCTV footage of the prison without audio and added their own audio and narration, which is completely false and attributed as if it was said by the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism. With this false news, it was shown as if the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism has accepted some crime, and it was publicly, widely publicized that the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism is guilty of some crime. Till date, media channels still cite this false news amongst each other and still run the same hate campaign and still run the same hate propaganda where they claim in 2010 the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism confessed to crimes which were never done, which has absolutely no head and tail, but still this lie is alive and the evidences have been published by the United Nations on their website. The records are all publicly accessible, and surely the there is no accountability whatsoever on these criminals. That is why unabated, without fear, they still keep the links on their websites without even bothering to delete them because they have no fear of any consequences. That is where the system has massively failed the Hindus worldwide. When the police was questioned in courts about how the CCTV footage can get leaked from a police prison and go to the media, the police claimed that the CCTV footage was stolen and destroyed. The police escaped accountability by framing the technician of the CCTV company which installed those cameras. They framed the technician of the CCTV company on trumped up charges of theft and tortured him to give false confession. Now, this CCTV technician who was tortured by the police, he sent the letters about revealing about the torture done to him to various human rights organizations and appeal bodies throughout the country. To all stages and all levels, he sent letters. All of these are in records. And he fought a long legal battle which concluded only in 2017, where he was proven innocent. Almost a decade later, the charges against the CCTV company technicians were proven false. The citation has also been given. It was in the Court of Additional Commissioner Bangalore on 11th July 2018 in criminal complaint 19,496, criminal complaint number 19,496 of 2011. The false case against the CCTV technician for stealing the CCTV footage and giving it to the media was dismissed. But till date, 2022, there has been no accountability on media how it got the, the CCTV footage from a prison in a cell where, as per work order given by the police, a special interrogation room with harsh lighting and other arrangements were made for torture. There is no accountability and all records are in public. On 11th June 2010, after 53 days of illegal detention and custodial torture, the state police submitted a memo of status report to the High Court of Karnataka in false case against the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, stating that they had no witnesses or victims of rape alleged against the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism. So, around May 2010, as we can see, the CCTV footage false news was being aired and continuously circulated in the media where the media was claiming the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism has confessed to some crime which has never happened. Just a month later, on 11th June 2010, after 53 days of illegal detention and custodial torture, the state police is giving a statement countering the media where they are accepting that in the false case against the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, the police had no witnesses or victims of rape there were no witnesses who were alleging rape against the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism. They had no witnesses, they had no evidences. The police is saying in a written memo to the court on 11 June 2010, despite the police not having any victims of the rape, the police still kept on dragging the false case and tried all means to frame the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism Nithyananda Paramashivam on false charges. So we can see very clearly was being submitted in the court was different, what was being told in the media was different, completely contradictory, and not even 1 month apart. But still, there was no accountability for what was being reported and is being still reported 12 years later. There is no accountability that there is such a huge gap, and what is being told in the court and what is being told in the media are so opposite. First of all, the facts, the lies being submitted by the Hindu media in the court itself is a lie. That itself, in that itself, they are unable to show even one false witness or evidence against the Supreme Point of Hinduism, and that they are accepting this on 11 June 2010 on record. But this has been clearly not reported in the media. Instead, what was being reported in the media was CCTV footage without audio was leaked by the media, and the voiceover of the anchor of the news channel was claiming that the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism has confessed to the crime. The voice was of the anchor, the news anchor. The footage was from the police interrogation room, and the narrative was of the Hindu media. And there is no accountability of all these lies and conspiracies. The police has taken almost a decade and still has not completed their false investigation which they started in 2010, and thus sustained the false case at a very preliminary stage itself for decades. The case is at a very preliminary, very initial stage, and it has not progressed even an inch since the last decade because of all these deceptive means. International human rights and legal experts have seen these charge sheets and reports and stated their opinion that if this was done in Ireland or the United Kingdom, the entire police proceedings would have been dismissed as abuse of process. International experts have already seen these reports and seen the conspiracies and persecution done against the Supreme. Signed letters with their blood appealing to the state authorities to end the persecution of the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, Nithyananda Paramashivam. Although legally the truth has been established internationally in various international forums such as United Nations, still the pain and suffering of the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism and millions of his followers remains unacknowledged, where the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, his community, his disciples, his monks, nuns are being treated like toys at the hands of Hindu media terrorists and deep state elements. The the machinery, the public state machinery, which is treating the lives of our beloved Guru, the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, as toy and playing with it and destroying the lives of the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism and all his followers without any sympathy, empathy, or consideration. With this pain, seeing the pain of the torture of the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism and the pain and suffering of the destruction of his mission of reviving Hinduism. This pain the disciples recorded as blood signatures and submitted it to state authorities in thousands. More than 10,000 of such signatures were submitted to the state authorities, and that has also been annexed, cited in this report. But till date, 12 years has passed, there has been no remedy from this persecution. On 11 June 2010, the Honorable High Court of Karnataka, while hearing the bail petition of the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, Nithyananda Paramashivam, in its order, criminal petition number 2328 of 2010, observed the undue media influence against the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism as an issue or a propaganda which was subsidized or funded by the media. This was clearly observed and recorded in the order by the High Court. Yet, the High Court, instead of acting against the media or giving some relief to the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, suspended the freedom of speech of the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism. Till date, in any part of the world, there has been no other case where the court of law has suspended the freedom of speech of any person like this. The Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism was targeted in unimaginable ways. The basic fundamental human rights of freedom of speech is irrevocable. It is very fundamental, and more than 150 countries throughout the world protect the basic human right of freedom of speech. And other than the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, there has been no other victim of such a blatant violation of basic human right, where a person has been denied of his basic human right of freedom of speech and expression, that too by a court of law. It is unheard of, and there is no other example in the world. Completely illegally, unconstitutionally, against basic human rights, the court suspended the freedom of speech of the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism. The Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism was forbidden by the court to impart any religious teachings other than conducting yoga classes. The suspension of the fundamental human right to freedom of speech by the court disabled the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism from being able to speak anything about the custodial torture and enforced disappearances and assassination attempts. Although the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism was released on bail as on as the police had openly acknowledged that there were no witnesses and there were no victims of the false rape allegations against the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, it was inevitable, and the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism could not be further kept in illegal imprisonment. But as a final blow, what was done to the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism was his fundamental human rights of freedom of speech was suspended by the court, so that all the torture, all the custodial torture and assassination attempts that were done to him in the prison, he could not talk about it, and he was forced into silence by the court order. On 22nd April 2010, 9 p.m., the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism was subjected to medical tests, which were classified in the police records as medical tests. These were done in police custody. Witness accounts report that an excessive amount of blood was withdrawn in the name of testing. Although these were classified as medical tests, what the witness accounts have reported, and it is on records which are available and presented to the United Nations, excessive amount of blood was withdrawn in the name of testing. In a very sophisticated way, the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism was subjected to inhumane medical torture, which was disguised as medical test, where excessive amount of blood was withdrawn in the name of testing. On 26th April 2010 morning, the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism was forced into another medical torture done under police custody at an undisclosed location. We can see the citation provided in the report. It is this medical torture done under police custody at an undisclosed location was publicly reported and published in a newspaper. The link to the newspaper has been provided to the United Nations. The newspaper has clearly shown that the police officer, the local police officer, have publicly stated to the media, which is available in public records, available in various public libraries of India, and also provided by Kailasa as an archival copy of the newspaper scans to the United Nations. The newspaper clearly states that the police is admitting that the medical torture test was done in an undisclosed location. Till date, there has been no explanation why these tests were done in an undisclosed location. In fact, the very report explains and questions why were not the tests done in a state hospital or a public hospital. But in the same report, it has been emphasized and clearly stated that the police stated that the tests will be conducted and were scheduled to be conducted in an undisclosed location. This media report was is available only in some libraries in India, and other than that, all copies have been destroyed from the internet. On 26th and 27th April 2010, the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism was again subject to a medical torture of waterboarding in Jayadev Hospital. All these torture and assassination attempts have been cited with evidences, with public records, with state records, with hospital records, with eyewitness testimonials, some even with CCTV footage records, and all these have been provided to the United Nations along with this report. On 8 September 2014, the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism was forced to yet another medical test, a medical test which was guising the medical torture. The test was not done in a room with privacy, it was done in an open ward where anybody could walk in, where any media man could walk in, where the public could completely freely see the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, and it was done not as a medical procedure, but it was done to body shame the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, to make a hate propaganda around the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism and publicly publicize it in the media. The media made caricatures with vulgar defamatory narratives and aired these while the test was still in progress. These media reports are still available in public domain. The state media team recorded this in their report. The state media clearly recorded that Sri Nithyananda Swami refused to permit audio-video recording of the tests which were conveyed to the investigating officer. Just like 2010, when the police CCTV footage of the torture and interrogation done to the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism was released to the media, again in 2014, the state medical team pressurized the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism to give in a written signed record, in a written signed document, that he should permit audio video recording of the potency test, of the medical torture test, which were going to be done on him. And if it were allowed, these footage would have also been leaked just like it was done in 2010. And for that reason, the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism refused. That did not stop the media from recording the with caricature addition in the report to force the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism to allow video and audio recording was done to justify the demand of videography of venereal organs of the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism. Such was the hate and dehumanization the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism was subjected, and it has been recorded in official documents, all of which are available publicly and also provided to the United Nations, which have been published in this report and cited with citations and accessible. In June 2012, the deep state elements attacked the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism in his monastic complex, posing as media persons. An anthrax bomb was attempted to be thrown at the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism in a parcel carried by someone who posed as a journalist carrying vote summons. When the AIP members tried to protect the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, they were physically assaulted, sexually molested. A law and order emergency was created in the criminals, the Hindu media mafia, The Hindu Misia terrorist militants who attacked him and his monastery, molested his nuns, and attacked his monks, broke their heads, and caused threat to the life of the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism through anthrax letter bomb. Instead of arresting these criminals and terrorists, the victims, the monks and the nuns, and the victim, the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, was arrested by the police, citing law and order situation. What it meant was, it was shown that for all the crimes done against the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism and his community, the community were responsible, not the attackers. So the logic, the illegal, unconstitutional logic presented by the deep state actors was, since the victims of the persecution cannot be protected, we will be punishing and imprisoning the victims. Because the crimes against the victims cannot be stopped, instead of punishing the criminals, the victims will be punished. In that way alone, the crimes can be prevented. With this convoluted, twisted, unconstitutional, inhuman logic, the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism was arrested. Further, a curfew was imposed on the private property. Firstly, curfew can be imposed only in public property, but a curfew, a ban on movement of more than two persons simultaneously at a time, was imposed in a private property. What it meant was, even a family of four cannot gather and have food together in the monastery. Even that would be illegal as per law. That is what is meant by a curfew being posed in a private property. Even four people together cannot stand in one place. It would be illegal. It is obvious curfew cannot be imposed in a private property, but still it was imposed. The High Court termed the arrest as illegal, without authority, contrary to law, without justification. This court order, High Court order, has been cited in the report, criminal petition number 3253 of 2012, and the link indianqanun.org link has also been provided, where the High Court has termed this illegal arrest of the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism as illegal, without authority, contrary to law, without justification. Despite of this, there was no accountability for the state terrorism or police torture and ill treatment. There was no accountability whatsoever. No accountability for facts such as 600 policemen, which costed the exchequer, that is the public, more than 1.5 million Indian rupees, brutally rammed on the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism and choked him by the neck, all of which was aired on the television. The citation of this television video report has also been submitted to the United Nations, which has been published, where more than 600 policemen at the cost of 1.5 million Indian rupees to the public exchequer, to the public funds, was used to brutally ram the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism and choke him by the neck. All of this has been video recorded and published in news channels and also provided to the United Nations. All this was done completely without any accountability, although this High Court has on public record termed the arrest as illegal, without authority, contrary to law, without justification. Despite of all this, there is no accountability to all the crimes done against the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism at the cost of public money, wasting the public money of the citizens of the country of India, done completely against the constitution of India, done completely against the law of the country, and also proven so by the High Court of the state of Karnataka. Despite of this, the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism till date is being treated illegally, unconstitutionally, inhumanly as a criminal And all these real criminals who are doing all these crimes, which have been proven so by the High Court and various courts of the country, are going unaccountable and they are continuing their crimes. The Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism was taken to an undisclosed location from the court by the police. The AIT members were not allowed to follow the Supreme Pontiff. The Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism was taken into illegal custody and subjected to torture and assassination attempt. The AIT community filed a habeas corpus petition pleading to the court to free the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism from illegal custody. The Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, when released thereafter, was warned and forced by deep state elements to leave Karnataka state and was left at the border of the state of Karnataka and was warned not to return to the state if he wished to be alive. Although the High Court had already given a bail to the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, he was illegally arrested and therefore the disciples were forced to file an habeas corpus petition requesting the state authorities, the deep state, to requesting the state authorities to free the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism. In the court of law, the state authorities claim that the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism was not arrested. He was already leaved. He was on bail. But then where was the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism if he was not arrested? He was taken to an undisclosed location again, where another attempt to assassinate him was made. Then, when he survived this assassination attempt, he was released on the border of the state of Karnataka, on the border of the state, and released with the warning that if he entered the state of Karnataka, he wouldn't be alive. All this was done on one side, and on the other side, in the court of law, it was claimed the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism was set free. He was not arrested. Like this, on one side, various illegal activities of assassination attempts were happening on the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, openly, publicly, all of them recorded by the media records, and some of them even recorded by the court records. And on the other side, a different story was being told in the courts, pretending as if nothing wrong was happening. In this way, systematically, throughout the past 12 years, the persecution of the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism has been kept alive. Continuing further in the report, the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism was denied his natural right to citizenship, though a born citizen of India, to prevent his travel abroad and isolate him from the followers worldwide and ensure his extermination in person and principle. The assassination attempts, the physical assassination attempts, was aimed to exterminate the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism physically. The media hate speech propaganda was done to exterminate the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism as a principle, as his mission, as his life, mission, and purpose to revive Hinduism. Both of these were being targeted and for extermination. The passport of the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism was illegally unfounded in 2010. In 2018, the passport renewal of the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism from his home country was denied in spite of High Court order to hand the passport to the custody of the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism till the disposal of the case. The media disinformation illegally disenfranchised the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism of his right to freedom of life and liberty and forced the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism and the indigenous AIT community the media disinformation illegally disenfranchised the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism of his right to freedom of life and liberty and forced the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism and the indigenous AIT community to displace themselves away from the land where they belong to. Continuing the hate speech propaganda, the hate propaganda, the lawfare, and the persecution of the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism. In 2018, the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism's passport was illegally impounded, rendering him de facto stateless and denying him his fundamental citizenship rights, and he was exiled thus from the country, rendering him and other indigenous AIT community members to displace themselves away from the land where they belong to. The supreme pontiff of Hinduism is the spiritual emperor of 19 ancient spiritual kingdoms, appointed as per the respective tradition of the kingdom, recognized as a living incarnation of Paramashiva, the primordial supreme divinity of Hinduism. The deep state elements filed a vexatious plaint in the court against the pontiff of the Madurai Adina to coerce him to nullify the appointment of the supreme pontiff of Hinduism as his successor. On 3rd May 2018, the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism was prohibited by the High Court of Madras from entering the Madurai Adinam, of which the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism is the successor. The court threatened the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism that it would order the arrest of the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism if he did not resign from his responsibility as a pontiff of the Madurai Adinam. The court, on record, said to the disciple of the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism who was attending the court proceedings, I will see that your ashram is vanished. The court openly threatened, declaring that the, the High Court judge openly threatened, I will see that your ashram is vanished. In this way, directly, the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism and his community was targeted by the Hindu media elements and deep state elements through a very sophisticated ways of entering the machinery, the state machinery. The Hindu media deep state elements made all efforts to destroy the mission of the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism and delegitimize him, and to also exterminate him both in person, in body, and in principle. All these are available in public records and have been reported to the United Nations and published, and all of these are completely accessible publicly. Various international human rights agencies, not just the United Nations, have gone through these reports and published their findings. On 17 September 2030, the Karnataka State Department of Women and Children forcibly and illegally interrogated children in the traditional school of the AIT without the consent of the parents, with no video recording of the examiners done late night beyond the time permissible by the law. On 17 September 2030, the Karnataka State Department of Women and Children forcibly and illegally interrogated children in the traditional Gurukul of the AIT community. There was no consent of the parents taken, which is a requirement as per law. They need to take consent of the parents. There was no video recording done by the examiners to ensure that no ill treatment of the children is done. This important practice was also not followed. The whole interrogation was done late night beyond permissible hours as per law. Against the law, these were done beyond the permissible time. Why so many laws were broken, there is no accountability. The state interrogators shamed and ridiculed the children, particularly the girls, for their dress. They pressured the children to quit their spiritual religious lifestyle and forced children to eat unhealthy substances avoided in the traditional Hindu lifestyle. The lawyer of the school was sued by the state for intervening in the violation of the rights of the children and their parents. The lawyer who tried to stop the state authorities, the Karnataka State Department of Women and Children, from doing all these illegal activities late night, harassing the children. When the lawyer of the Gurukul intervened, the Karnataka State Department of Women and Children filed a case against the lawyer of the Gurukul. The lawyer's only mistake was the lawyer tried to protect the human rights of the children. For this act, which was just, which was correct, the Karnataka State Department of Women and Children filed a false case against the lawyer so that the lawyer is threatened and withdraws, and no other lawyer has attempts to even stand to protect the rights of these children and the people. Several such raids continued to be done by Karnataka State Department of Women and Children and various state departments, and many vexatious legal proceedings and orders were executed by the state to forcibly shut down the schools and were done against the children. It involved molesting the children, harassing the parents, trying to kidnap the children and put them in other school, or try to kidnap them and pretend to show them as if these children are orphans. All these things were done by deep state elements, Indonesia elements, and state authorities. On June on 6 June 2020, this was repeated on in 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 2019. This was repeated in the state of Gujarat. On 6th June 2020 at 1 a.m. local time, deep state elements destroyed the temple monastic complex of the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism in Varanasi, India, in spite of Allahabad High Court orders prohibiting the destruction. This High Court order has been mentioned in the report writ petition 58,947 of 2017, which was a state order was passed by the Honorable High Court of Allahabad on 11 December 2017 against this writ petition 58,947 on 2017. Against this High Court order, the temple monastery complex of the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism was destroyed by deep state elements. We can see how the court orders are not being honored in India. All this has been reported to the United Nations with public records of the respective High Court orders and how these High Court orders are being openly broken by various state authorities, by various deep state elements, such that it is impossible to get justice for the persecuted AIT Hindu community of India, because even when they have High Court orders in their favor, these High Court orders are not honored, they are not executed, leaving them completely toothless and just a piece of paper which the state authorities do not respect. Although the Hindu community, the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, his disciples, follow each and every aspect of law to the letter and spirit, it is they who are continuously attacked by law, by misusing law as a weapon to attack them. On the contrary, the deep state Hindu media terrorists who do not follow law, any law, who do everything unconstitutional and illegal, they are able to continue break all the laws and break even any court order which is passed in favor of the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism and his community, completely unabated without any accountability whatsoever. It shows that it is impossible for the community to get any legal justice, as it has been established on record that the court orders in favor of the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism or his community are not honored by the state executive or state authorities. It is very clearly documented through various legal proceedings right from 2010 till 2020. We are seeing case after case, and we are presenting all these facts have been presented to the United Nations. As there is no domestic legal recourse available in India, these matters have been taken internationally to various international human rights organizations such as the United Nations. This destruction of the temple, done in 2020, was a third attempt in the same year. The police beat the 3 Hindu monks residing in the temple monastic complex who tried to protect the complex with their lives. The police whisked them away to an undisclosed location. A woman living next to the temple gave a witness video testimony on the destruction of the temple and also gave a witness testimony, video testimony, how the monks were beaten and taken away by the police without revealing their whereabouts. The woman's son was also kidnapped for the woman tried to support the Hindu monks. The woman, who was an eyewitness, a third party eyewitness, was also victimized for helping the Hindu monks. In this way, systematically, the community and any of its sympathizers have been attacked. In November 2019, a massive media disinformation was launched against the women AIT members and the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism to destroy the largest Hindu monastery, Hindu university in the world in Gujarat, alleging falsely crimes like torture, kidnap, and branding the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism as the enemy of the state for approaching the United Nations for justifying the protection from the humanitarian crimes. As we just saw how the court order, the High Court order, which was there to prevent the Varanasi monastery from being destroyed, was completely dishonored, disobeyed by state authorities, and it was destroyed. It is very clear and evident that no domestic legal recourse is working. All the legal domestic recourse has failed for the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism and the AIT community. And therefore, they have been left with no other choice than to approach the international community to protect their life, to protect their human rights, to protect their religious freedom, to protect their life. Now, just because the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, the Kailasa, the mission of Kailasa, inspired by the teachings of the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, approached the United Nations for justice and protection from the humanitarian crimes. The Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism and his community members were targeted, and in November 2019, a massive media disinformation was launched against the women AIT members. The largest women's Hindu university in the world, which was in Gujarat, was destroyed. And the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism was branded as the enemy of the state for approaching the United Nations for justice and protection from the humanitarian crimes. A false case of kidnap was framed against the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, though he had not even stepped foot into the state of Gujarat for over a decade. The girl children of the AIT were targeted in the Gurukul schools, the indigenous traditional school, and attacked physically, shamed, and shown pornographic material by the Hindu militia terrorists. An adult nun was forced to flee from the monastery to escape from the deep state elements, where deep state elements of Nirma of Karni Sena, deep state elements under the brand name of Karni Sena, tried to abduct a nun from the state of Gujarat, from the Gujarat female monastery of the AIT. She was forced to flee the monastery to escape abduction by the Karni Sena Hindu militia militants. The administrators were instead accused of kidnapping the nun. So one side, deep state terrorist, Hindu militia terrorist, tried to abduct a nun from the monastery and forced her to flee the monastery. On the other side, the administrator nuns of the monastery were accused of abducting her, and were a false case was filed against them, and they were put into prison. Officials raided the female monastery and molested the students. The women heads of the university were arrested illegally on false charges of kidnap and subjected to torture and imprisonment for 3 months, and thereafter forced to live on streets during the COVID-19 pandemic. The university was ransacked and millions of dollars worth of infrastructure stolen, and the building was demolished. Like that, very systematically, completely, the whole university complex was destroyed. The community was broken and destroyed. The administrators were put into prison on false charges. The nuns, it was attempted, a kidnap was attempted on them and they were forced to flee. The children were molested. The parents of the children were harassed, and there has been no justice provided to any of the victims. There has been no accountability for any of the crimes. All these crimes done by deep state elements, Indonesia terrorists, have been reported by Kailasa to the United Nations and published in this report, and closed with the following recommendation. First, enforce disappearance of the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism and his community, imputable to non-state actors acting without the authorization, support, or acquiescence of the state have to be addressed by the member states, which are signatories of the International Convention for Protection of All Persons from Enforced Disappearance, especially India, which is a signatory since 6th February 2007. India should ratify the convention and address the enforced disappearances of the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism and his community, and ensure protection and justice are given to the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism and his community, given the ongoing incessant persecution on them since 2010. Second, the international community needs to recognize the persecution of the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism and the genocide of his minority community and give adequate protection to them so that the principles and the tradition of the community is preserved and not eliminated. With these recommendations, the report of Kailasa Union to the United Nations was closed. We are extremely grateful to the Office of High Commissioner of Human Rights, OHCHR of United Nations, and the Committee on Enforced Disappearances of the OHCHR of the United Nations for publishing this report by Kailash Union on their website, for accepting the report and endorsing it and publishing it on their website, so that Kailash Union can continue their religious freedom struggle to get justice for the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism and 2 billion persecuted, born and practicing Hindus. We thank the international community and the United Nations for their support, and we thank all our viewers who patiently go through this report as we shared the details of the persecution done to the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism and his community. I would like to thank everyone and close today's important revelation of this release by the United Nations. Thank you for joining us. We'll close with the Purna. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Sarvam Bhagavad Nithyananda Paramashivam Padukarpanastu. Om Nithyanandam.
I welcome you all with my love and respect. Let you all open all your three eyes.